Hello everyone and welcome back to Mindful Mannies and Chats. Today I am going to be presenting a few tips on your low buy slash no buy journey, just because I know with a new year becomes a lot of resolutions, and I think a lot of people want to cut back on some hobby spending in the new year for a variety of reasons. On the agenda for today, I'm going to be presenting 3 low buy tips, 2 no buy tips, as well as just talking about my personal goals for 2025 when it comes to nail polish, as well as some reasoning as to why I will be going on the low buy slash no buy as well. Alright, let's get right into it. So first off, I will be talking about low buy tips, and I think the most important one is going to be just to be picky when it comes to what you're trying to purchase online. I know a lot of time we are presented with literally hundreds of different polishes sometimes, depending on what sites you go to, and my best advice would just to be extremely picky about what you want and do not settle. So for example, if you see a polish that you mostly like, but there's just like one thing about it that you most of the time will probably just chalk up to not being photographed correctly, here is your reminder that there's probably a lot of things wrong with the polish that aren't being photographed. I know a lot of the time polishes can look pretty much perfect when they're photographed, but that's why you have to be so thorough whenever you're looking at something new, because any little thing that might not look as big of a deal in a photo can be a big deal when you have it in person. Some of the things that I'm really picky about when it comes to polishes are like opacity, whether it's sheer or opaque, and how I would prefer that specific type of polish to be, as well as just the shade itself. If the shade isn't like exactly what I'm craving, I pass on it, as well as sometimes the amount of like hollow glitters in it. If it's just a little too much, I will also pass on it, or if it's not enough as well. Essentially, I just try to imagine like the most perfect and ideal version of that polish, and if that's not what I'm seeing online, then I pass on it, because I think we should remember that a lot of the times these pictures are like heavily edited, and sometimes the undertone of the swatcher can really affect how a polish will look, as well as just their lighting setup and what types of base coats they're using. So I sometimes also try to just find the worst possible image of it on the listing, and if I don't vibe with that, then I just don't get it, because I think that if we're always only looking at the best images, which a lot of the time in my opinion are like the macros, we're not really seeing that amount of detail and the polishes in that specific ideal lighting. 99% of the time you want of the more average experience that you will use. Another tip that really helps me is to just set straight up rules in terms of what you can or cannot buy. So I know for me, I have a lot of like blue-green shifting shimmers, so I am cutting myself off and I'm not allowing myself to buy any more of those, because I mean, how many combinations of that are there in the world? I have enough. I don't need any more. Yes, there are some I probably don't have, but I'm okay with that because I already have so many and I love them, and I don't want to introduce competition. I mean, what if one gets jealous of the other one? This can honestly be as like strict or not strict as you want it to be. For me, it's like the blue shifting and the shimmers, but some people I know also just outlaw like thermals or magnetics, because they might have like pigment degradation issues, as well as just needing extra effort for application. So it's up to you, honestly. You can even just do straight up like no pinks or reds or oranges or whatever color you don't use very much of, which just brings up another point as to why we should all be tracking our manicures for the year. It just takes a few seconds, and the amount of information it gives you by the end is so meaningful. That was my first video for this channel, so check that out if you haven't. Because if you have a color that you know you're not going to use often and you don't need more of in your collection, you can just choose to not purchase anymore. My final low buy tip is to just leave things in your cart for as long as possible. If you just wait on it for a few weeks, you might forget what was even in it in the first place. Sometimes I'll make a copy of it and write all the polish names down in my notes app, and I look back on it later and I'm like, what polish was that? What did that look like? I don't really remember, and I take that as a sign to just move on and delete that tab. Also, a lot of the time, if you just have that cart sitting, you might get sent discounts. For example, I know ILNP does this. I think they send you like a 10 or 15% off coupon. But you might also just end up being lucky and the brand has a sale for the whole site, and you could take advantage of that if you already have a cart made. But another thing I would like to mention when making carts on polish websites is that a lot of the time we find ourselves adding stuff just to get that free shipping, and I know it's so hard when you have the option to get free shipping and not trying to aim for that option, but I promise you, so many times I have done that and I end up regretting polishes I added, not because I really like them, but just because I wanted to avoid paying like the $6 shipping fee, when instead I end up paying like $15 for a polish that I don't really like, and then I'm kind of just stuck with it, and I wish I would have just paid half that and only had polishes I really liked. Okay, now we're gonna move on to my 2 no-buy tips. First off is to just honestly play with your collection and like touch it, feel it, make the things that you have in your collection known, make them stick in your brain, because I feel like a lot of the time if you have your polish collection somewhere like in a separate room or like in a closet or under your bed, you might not see it a lot, and honestly you might forget what you have and you might forget how much you loved those things. So I think that regularly going through it and just seeing and feeling what you already have, it might like instill a new joyness in you, and it might make you not feel so tempted to buy new stuff when you realize all the beautiful things that you already own. That being said, once you know what you have, that also allows you to recreate a lot of polishes that you might see online, especially if you have a good selection of like toppers and like creams and jellies. It's easier than you think to try to just kind of dupe out the vibe, as they say. So I would really recommend doing that. I plan on definitely playing around with that on my channel later. But yeah, so whenever you might have a polish that you're tempted to buy, maybe go through your collection and see if you have something similar or if you can recreate something similar from what you already have. My last no-buy tip is to just honestly unfollow / mute or unsubscribe from a lot of brands online. I know you might feel like a little bit of guilt because you might have supported these brands for a long time, but just tell yourself it's temporary until you have your no-buy set and done, and then you can always resubscribe. I feel like a lot of time we don't even realize like the effect of receiving these notifications every single day, multiple times a day from all these brands telling us to purchase has on us. So I would really recommend taking like a break and just seeing what it feels like, see if it feels better for you. I know for sure whenever I'm on a no-buy, that is something I really have to do because it just makes my life so much easier and I'm not constantly tempted to get new shiny pretty things. Alright, so if you're curious why I am doing like a low buy for 2025, it's just because as I talked about a little bit in my first video on this channel, I just spent a lot of 2024 going through strictly my untrieds, and I didn't even get to the bottom of it. So I got kind of tired of that because I was a cycle of guilt if I didn't use one, and then if I did use one, I felt like I was forcing myself to use it, and then it wasn't as fun anymore. So going forward in 2025, I have set up 4 kind of rules for myself, and I'd like to share them with you now. So right now, the total amount of nail polish bottles I have in my collection is 238. 208 of that is actual colors, and then I have 20 toppers and then 10 top slash base coats. So one of my goals for 2025 is to make that total number under 200. So I would have to destash about 38. Speaking of destashes, another one of my goals is to destash 50 polishes. Last year in 2024, I destashed 94 polishes, and that was a lot, but I feel like I don't have as many in my collection now that I'd like to get rid of, but a goal is to just get rid of 50, but a minimum of 38. When it comes to buying, I want to only buy 10 in 2025, which is kind of a crazy, but I feel like it would be heavily worth it. Last year I bought 35 polishes, and honestly that felt like too much for me. Even though that was my goal was to only buy 35 in 2024, and I kind of maxed out of that goal, but I felt super guilty by the end of it, so I want to like present a real challenge for myself and only buy 10. I think a big instigator for that is just because I want to spend a lot of time focusing on the polishes I already have instead of constantly having a stream of incoming polishes. My last goal for 2025 is to just at some point in the year have 0 untried polishes. If I could end the year with that, that would be great, but as long as I meet that criteria at some point, I would be happy. Right now, I think I have about 22 untried polishes. 4 of those, I believe, were purchased by me, and the other 18 were sent to me by PR. So I do go through the PR ones and do a little nail art with them, but I don't really count them as totally tried until I do like a full kind of manicure with them. And because I received so many, which I am very grateful for, it does take me quite a while, especially because I mostly just do single polish manicures for 1 whole week. So that would mean it would take me about 22 weeks to get through all of my untrieds. And then if I count in the 10 that I purchased throughout the year, that's 32 weeks, and that is over half of the total weeks in the year. And just saying that kind of scares me a little bit. So I am envisioning a lot of Skittle manicures in my future. Alrighty guys, I hope you enjoyed my tips and tricks for low slash no buys. I have followed all of those whenever I go on a low buy. I think I'm planning on just doing a full no buy until May, and then whatever happens after May will be documented on this channel. So thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know below if you are planning on using any of these tips, if you have more tips that you'd like to suggest, as well as what your goals are for 2025. Bye!